Level 1, the safety net. You're 19. Freshman year, second semester. The card arrives in a plain envelope. No fanfare. A $500 limit attached to your name for the first time. You don't spend it on anything reckless. A textbook you couldn't afford outright, a flight home for Thanksgiving. The interest rate is a number you read once in small print. You never read it again. Numbers you don't look at can't hurt you yet. You tell yourself this is normal. Everyone has one of these. Everyone's parents had one. This is just how adulthood quietly begins. You pay the minimum on time every single month. You feel, briefly, like someone who finally has this handled. You don't notice that the word minimum was designed to feel like enough while quietly being almost nothing at all. Level 2, the convenient lie you're 21. The balance has never once hit zero. It hasn't visibly grown either. In your head, those two facts have started to feel like the same thing. You book a flight you can't really afford in cash because the card makes the math disappear for a moment. You're not spending money, you're spending later. Later is a place that doesn't exist yet. Later becomes a place you quietly live in full time. A friend mentions their interest rate in passing. You realize with a small jolt that you've never once calculated yours in actual dollars, only ever in the comfortable abstraction of a percentage. You tell yourself you'll pay it off once things settle down. Things have never once settled down. You just slowly stopped noticing that they hadn't. Level 3, the first real number. You're 23, first real job, first real paycheck that doesn't feel like a joke. You consolidate the student loans and the car debt into one number, $11,000, all at once. Undeniable. Seeing it whole produces a kind of vertigo you weren't expecting from a spreadsheet. You promise yourself out loud, alone in an empty apartment, that this is the year you fix it. You make one aggressive payment. It feels incredible. Then rent goes up $60. The aggressive payment quietly shrinks back into the minimum. The promise becomes something you said once instead of something you're actually doing. Level 4, the financing of normal life. You're 25. The car breaks down on a Tuesday. The replacement comes with financing instead of cash, because financing is simply what cars come with now. Nobody questions it. Everybody does it the exact same way. A few months later, a dental bill arrives that insurance doesn't fully cover. It goes straight onto the card because the alternative, not fixing your own tooth, was never really an alternative. You're not reckless. You're not buying things you don't need. You're just discovering that needing things has a price you keep paying in small monthly installments instead of all at once. The installments make every individual decision feel smaller than it actually is. They quietly compound into something much larger than any single decision ever looked like on its own. You are, somewhere in this month, standing at the entrance of something you will not recognize as a trap until you are already well inside it. Level 5, the balance transfer. You're 27. You move the highest interest balance onto a new card, 0% for 12 months. It feels like winning, like you finally outsmarted the system instead of quietly feeding it for years. You don't read the part where the rate jumps sharply after the promotion ends. Reading that would mean admitting you're not solving the debt. You're just relocating it to a more comfortable address for a while. For exactly 1 year, the number looks genuinely better. You don't show this number to anyone. Not because it's private. Some part of you already knows precisely what it represents underneath the optimistic math. Level 6, the math you stop doing. You're 29. You no longer add up the total across the 4 things you owe money on. The total is a number you don't want to know, and a feeling you don't want to have, both at exactly the same time. You know each individual payment, the card, the car, the loan, the line of credit. The way you might know 4 different songs without realizing they're all on the same heavy album, playing on repeat in a room you've stopped fully entering. Someone asks, casually at dinner, how much you owe altogether across everything. You laugh and say you genuinely have to check. What you don't say is that checking would require opening 4 different apps in the same evening and writing down 4 different numbers and then adding them together. And that sequence of actions has become genuinely, physically difficult to begin, not because it's complicated, because of what the total might say about the version of yourself you've been quietly pretending not to be. You will not check. Not checking has become the entire load-bearing architecture of how you function inside this. Level 7, the minimum as identity. You're 31. The minimum payments are no longer something you merely tolerate. They're something you've built a monthly budget around, a permanent line item, like rent, like groceries, as though they were always meant to be there. You get a raise at work. The extra money doesn't go toward the principal. It goes toward a slightly nicer apartment because you've quietly decided, without ever saying it out loud, that paying down debt is something future you will handle. Present you deserves a small reward for surviving present you's particular circumstances. Future you has been handling nothing at all for over a decade now. Some part of you has started to suspect future you never actually existed in the first place. Level 8, the call you don't pick up. You're 33. A number you don't recognize calls twice in the same week. You let it go to voicemail both times. You don't listen to either message. Some part of your nervous system already knows exactly what it is before your conscious mind has caught up. You're not behind on everything. You're behind on one thing, barely. By a number of days, you've deliberately stopped counting precisely so it can remain vague in your memory. The fear underneath this isn't really about the money anymore. It's about what it would mean to finally look directly at the math you've spent 14 years not looking at. Level 9, the number with your name on it. You're 35. Late at night, for reasons you can't entirely explain, you finally open every account at once. You add it all up in one unbroken sitting. $41,000. Not because of one bad decision, because of 16 years of decisions so small and so reasonable in each individual moment that none of them ever felt at the time like the one that would end up mattering most. You think about the 19-year-old who opened that first card believing a $500 limit was simply a tool, not a doorway into anything larger. He wasn't wrong that it was a tool. He was only wrong about who would eventually end up holding it, and for how long, and at what real cost, paid out in monthly installments small enough to never once feel like what they actually were. The number doesn't move while you stare at it in the dark. It just exists, finally seen in full, exactly the way it always could have been seen, plainly and completely, if you had ever once been brave enough to sit down and add. Tonight, a 19-year-old opens a plain envelope, a card inside it, a $500 limit attached to a name they haven't finished growing into yet. They don't read the interest rate twice. They don't feel any need to. It's just a tool. Small, reasonable, completely normal, the same as everyone else around them seems to have. They slide it into their wallet behind the student ID and don't think about it again for the rest of that ordinary night. The envelope goes straight into the trash, forgotten by morning. They'll think about the card again in about 3 weeks, when something small and slightly inconvenient comes up, and the card is right there in the wallet, ready. The number starts counting now, quietly, patient in a way they are not yet capable of recognizing. It has nowhere to be. It has nothing but time.